Hi guys, so this is going to be our video for 6.2. I'm going to kind of just pause and give you a second to pause the video here so that you can get the warm-up done. So remember to get this done on your warm-up sheet of paper. And then since this is Friday, make sure your name is on it and turn that in. You won't have an opportunity to go over the correct answer today, so just make sure that you have some kind of work shown for me so I can see that you at least attempted to figure out this answer. Remember, if you didn't get it right, that's still okay. So go ahead and pause so that you can work on this. All right, hopefully you are done with your warm-up, so make sure you get that turned in today before you leave my classroom. Today we're going to talk about comparing and ordering integers. So comparing meaning like using these symbols to compare. We wouldn't have this one or this one because in this case when you're comparing two numbers you don't need these symbols, you just need them for when you have variables. So it'll either be less than, greater than, or equal to each other. Ordering meaning putting in order from least to greatest, like on a number line or just simply listing it out. So for example, you've got -4, 3, 0, -1, and -2. We want to put those in order from least to greatest on a number line. When you're asked to put them in order from least to greatest on a number line, remember that the number line should accurately show where all those numbers are. So if I were to look at just these 5 numbers and just simply put them in order from least to greatest, remember least would mean farthest away from 0, there we go, to the left of 0. So the most negative number here is -4, that's our smallest number. And then I'd have -2, -1, 0, and 3, right? If all I had to do is just list them in order without putting them on a number line, that would be the numbers in order from least to greatest. I could not just come down here on my number line and put them like that. Why not? Well, that's saying right now that these numbers are each the same distance apart. Well, this distance is 2. These are 1 apart. These are 1 apart, and these are 3 apart. So that's not actually very accurate to list it that way. So do not do that when you create your number line. We need to actually show it accurately. So I want to start with what is my least number, -4. Put that towards the end of my number line here. You're going to put a dot on all the lines that actually represent a number from your solution, from our answer here of numbers that we put in order from least to greatest. The next number would be -3. Well, that's not one of my numbers here, but that would be next if I'm counting by ones, which I'm going to do for this one here. Then I've got -2. I'll put a dot on that one because that is a part of my solution. Then -1. 0 is also a part of my solution. And then I have tick marks for 1 and 2, but no dots on them because they're not from my answer here. And then 3. That now actually shows my answers correctly spaced apart on the number line, okay? And no dots on these numbers because I just needed them in between to show my answers. In that case, I chose to count by ones because those numbers were all fairly close together. If you had numbers where it goes from like -50 to +100, then maybe it makes more sense to count by 50s, right? Or 10s, 20s, 2s. But look at your numbers in your sequence to decide what makes sense to use as your interval between tick marks on your number line. All right, so example 2, you've got 4, -7, -8, 6, and 1. Why don't you pause the video and figure this out yourself, and then unpause when you're ready to check the solution. So your numbers here in order from least to greatest. I see I have 2 negative numbers, so I know those are going to be my least. The smallest one is -8, that is farthest from 0, and then -7, so I'm going to start with -8 here. I can see my biggest number out of all of them is 6, so they are pretty spread apart, so I might want to count by 2s here just to make sure I can fit it all in. So that's what I'm going to choose to do here, just to also show you guys a different way to create our number line. If you counted by 1s, that's totally fine. So then my next tick mark here, I need to put a dot on here because that's part of my solution, and I like to kind of cross off as I go to make sure I've accounted for everything. So if I'm going to count by 2s, then I'd have -6. Well, where does -7 go? Because I just counted by 2s. Well, it would be in between -8 and -6. So I also wanted to show you guys what it would look like if you choose to count by a number where that doesn't quite work out for some of your values. Then I'd have -4, -2, 0. My next number I'd come across here is 1, so this would be 2, and I'd have the 1 in between. And then 4 is one of my solutions, and 6 is one of my solutions. So that's one way you could do it. You could have also just actually put a tick mark for every single number, and that would be fine as well. Then you would have dots on all the numbers. You can choose to label these ones underneath or not, but since they're right in between, we can figure out, oh, that's -7. Oh, that's +1. The other way you guys are going to look at integers today is by comparing them. So a less than sign, a greater than sign, or potentially an equal sign. We don't have any that are equal here, but I think in your homework there might be one or two that are equal. So I'm just going to add that in just so you know it is a possibility. So remember, this is your less than symbol because we read from left to right. And remember, it's opening up towards the bigger number. So think about that. Since we read left to right, this number here is smaller than the number over here when you're using this symbol. So it's opening up towards the bigger number. This is your greater than sign. So in that case, since we read left to right, it's opening up towards the first number you read. So that one's bigger than, greater than your number on your right. So I have -4 and 0 in that first example there. So -4, -0 right in the middle of the number line. -4 is less than 0. Okay, 0 is the bigger number, so it's opening up towards the bigger number. 9 and -2. 9 is greater than -2. When they're both negative, this is probably when it gets the most confusing when you're first learning negative numbers. So remember, on my number line, it appears like 0, and then my positive numbers are going this way to the right. Remember, it goes -1, -2, -3, -4, -5, -6. So -6 is here, -2 is here. So -2 is closer to 0, so it's bigger than -6. You'd rather only owe someone $2 than owe someone $6, right? So this is where it's the reverse of positive numbers, because if these were both positive, then obviously 6 would be the bigger number. So -2 is greater than -6. So take a sec, see if you can figure out the next one there, -8 and -5. I'll give you a minute to think about it. And hopefully you put in that -5 is greater than -8. So again, why don't you pause it and try the bottom four there, same thing, just compare using inequality signs. All right, hopefully you got these answers. So 2 is greater than -3, so you read that as -3 is less than 2. -7 is greater than -10. -9 is less than -8. And -1 is greater than -2. This shows a map of Virginia. It shows the coldest recorded temperatures in several of the cities in Virginia. Part A just asks which of those cities recorded the coldest temperature. So if you look at, there's 5 total temperatures here. If you look at those, which of those is the coldest? Hopefully you said your answer was the -12 degrees Fahrenheit in Richmond, Virginia. And then part B here just says that we're going to put those numbers in order on a vertical number line. A vertical number line looks a lot like a thermometer, right? Now again, we want to make sure that our number line is accurate, actually representing how far apart those numbers are. I'd want to take a quick look and figure out what's my biggest number, what's my smallest number, so I know how to set up my number line. Well, we just figured out our smallest number is -12, -0. So 0 is actually my biggest number, okay? In a vertical number line, the way it goes is that your numbers are getting bigger as you move up and smaller as you move down. So my biggest number should be at the top of my number line, my smallest number should be at the bottom. So my 0 should be up here, and then I'd be going down like this. In this case, I'm just going to count by ones, because I can pretty easily fit that in. So my other values were -3, -10, and -11 and -12. So you should have dots on your number line at 0, -3, and then -10, -11, -12. And it should look like that. Last example here. Says the number is greater than -8 and less than 0. What's the greatest possible integer that would work for this situation? Take a second and think about that. Okay. greater than -8, less than 0. What's the greatest possible integer that would work for this situation? So it might help to draw yourself a number line. -8, 0. Your number's greater than -8. Well, greater would be going this way, but less than 0. So it has to fall somewhere in this range. Remember when we graphed inequalities? Okay. It's kind of like a graph of an inequality there. So our number could be somewhere in that range. Out of all these possible answers, what's the greatest integer that would fall in that range that we just shaded in there? Integer means, remember, positive numbers and their opposites, right? So 1 and -1, 2 and -2, 3 and -3, and so on, and 0, of course. So the greatest possible integer that's less than 0 and greater than -8 is -1. So hopefully that's what you said your answer is. All right, that's it for the notes. You have homework tonight, and then also when you're done with your homework and done with your notes, you can do some fact practice as well. I've listed those options off on Google Classroom, so you can take a look at what your options are for that, because remember, we are doing division now, so we need some division time test practice.